David Bowerly here. Welcome to another episode of Furniture Restoration. Enjoy. Hi, this is going to be a short video on glues and gluing. So the first thing is the glue that was used historically on the planet until the early 1900s was animal hide glue. So this, the way I buy it, animal hide glue is provided to me in its granular form. I just purchase it in a bag like this, and I measure some out. And then I would add liquid to this, just add water to this. Last night I poured about this much in, poured water on it, let it sit overnight, and then I put it into my hot pot. So this is an electric pot that heats this glue up to a point where it's able to be applied to the wood. Now historically, this animal hide glue was applied to pieces of wood and or veneer. So they would put that on there and then put some veneer on there, and then they would hammer that, use a hammer on it to get it flat. And it adheres as it cools and dries. So as the water evaporates from it, then it begins to have a grip to it. This is a mechanical bond, and almost exclusively the antiques that you're going to buy and restore pre-1930 or so are going to have animal hide glue on them. And repairing and restoring animal hide glue pieces is a bit different. Glue doesn't glue to glue, so if you can't get all the old glue off of a piece, then I would use animal hide glue to put it back together. And there's nothing wrong with that, because if you have the old animal hide glue on there, the new animal hide glue is going to adhere to the old stuff. New PVA glues do not penetrate old animal hide glue, so you lose your grip, you lose your joint. So that's, and I seldom use animal hide glue. Usually I can clean the old joints off and I use PVA glue. Occasionally I will use a two-part epoxy, and that's this stuff here, and that's this is the A part. And I just do a 50-50 mix on that, and this works great for really badly destroyed joints that you just aren't going to be restored by using PVA glues. And so and I use that occasionally, and at times it comes in incredibly handy. But the glue that I use the most is just the standard Elmer's glue or yellow tight bond woodworking glue, and it works with the way that wood is Mother Nature made wood. So Mother Nature made trees to transport water from the roots up through the tree to the leaves. That's the purpose of a tree. And so if you cut wood and you have the long grain side showing, and you want to make a joint, you want to have a nice flat, straight joint, and if you use PVA glue, it'll go on this joint, and it will minutely penetrate through the moisture in it, will penetrate into through the cellular structure of the wood. And as you clamp those together, it chemically makes a linking bond from one cellular structure on one side to the cellular structure on the other side. It's an incredibly strong joint. And when you're trying to, if you make this joint, clamp it, and let it dry for a day or so, whatever the proper time is, if you try and break that joint, it'll actually break the wood fibers around it, but it will not break the joint itself. That'll be stronger than the fibers of the wood. Now, that's for side-to-side joints, going with the long way of the grain. If you're going end grain to end grain, this is the end grain, like that, there is some grip, but not much. It loses its strength because as Mother Nature made the wood, the moisture travels up the tree, and you don't have that cross linkage. It's a, it'll give you some bond, but I would never trust it for anything. So I'll just show you how I clamp up a joint these days. So this is just the standard glue up of a good flat joint. You want to get a little bit of glue. You don't really need that much glue. I listened to one of the scientists from the manufacturers at Tight Bond one time, and he said actually their best recommendation is to put the glue on and then scrape the majority of the glue off and just leave enough to make the bond. I don't do that. It makes me a little nervous thinking about scraping off too much of that glue. So this is how I do it. And when I start, I start to glue at one end. And I make sure this end is nice and flush. And I start tightening the joint there. And make sure that the joint is flush, a little ways in. I come to the next one, and that one is actually pretty flush still, but you can see where I can feel where this is starting to lose its joint right there. So I can move up one of these joints or one of the boards and actually tighten this a little bit, and then come in with this last one, and see that's quite a bit off there. If you can pick that up, David, and I can move these still while this is tight here, and I can move these and pull my clamp in and get that to come in nice and flush. I mean, that's almost perfect. And then go back and fully tighten the joint. Now, when I glue things up, I prefer to glue one joint at a time. So if I'm gluing a bunch of boards, I glue one joint at a time, because glue is really slippery. And so as you're gluing it, it tends to want to twist a little bit and slide up and down, and I prefer to do that. That gives me a nice smooth and flush joint. And that joint is really nice and flush. And, these are just scrap pieces, so I didn't pay attention to how they match up. But, if you notice the wood grain there, I could have matched those up a little bit so that the wood grain isn't so noticeable as it moves across that joint. It's just one of the preferences I have for making sure that the piece has some symmetry to it. So, this is not an exhaustive explanation of wood glues by any means, but it's really the three glues that I use the most. I see so many people talk about these new polyurethane glues that are expand, and I find them to be just a pain in the ass. And I do not recommend them. I recommend PVA glues. They make them in a standard, which is the old stuff that was original. They make them in a water resistant, and then they make them in a waterproof. So you can, depending on your use of what you're gluing together, if you're doing anything outside, you want waterproof. But experiment with them, learn how they work, and hopefully over time they will. They'll become more natural to you how you use them. So this one last thing. I showed you how this animal hide glue works on a piece. So if you were putting veneer on it, this is almost there. Now, I would have had glue over the whole thing, and I would have had a hammer press that would have been pressing on this. But that's how they did this back in Egypt several thousand years ago, and that animal hide glue hasn't changed much over time. So good luck with it. You'll learn as you go, and if you have any questions, send me a question via email or check on the link below. Thanks. Hi, David Bowerly signing off here. And if you learned something, if you got questions, or even if you got an idea for a future topic, just subscribe below. Thanks.